I'm DaShannon Lovin, your friendly librarian. I'm back with some book love. Let's chat. There have been some really good ones. I've had a good start to 2021 reading, and I want to share it with you. So currently I have the books over here that I want to talk to you about. I feel like they're a little out of the screen. There we go. Some books that I want to talk to you about that I've recently read. I have some books that I've recently reviewed. So yeah, I've read them in the past, but they're ones that I want to get out there and talk to you a little bit about. And I've added all those reviews on Goodreads just here since the last video. And then over here, I have a whole stack of books that I have borrowed from people, or people have been so generous to lend me, and I need to get through these books. So I just want to share these titles with you and let you know that they're on my to-be-read list very quickly. That's going to be my #1 goal this summer. And I'm going to get back every book I've borrowed, because I obviously don't need to be borrowing books. I need to be reading the ones that I have. But these are some hot titles, so I wanted to borrow them. There's some ones that I know I've mentioned the titles to you, and I think that you might be interested too. So maybe we can read them together, and that will push me to get these done. Oh, and I have a huge book haul today. I think I've been going to the thrift stores a little bit too much in the winter here. I somehow have just picked up a ton of books, and I do want to talk to you about those. I'm not going to review them today, but I want you to see my book haul, and I want to tell you about where I do pick up some of my books. I know it looks like I spend a ton of money on books. Okay, I do spend a ton of money on books, but I don't really spend that much. I don't pay retail for most of my books. I pick them up from various places, so I'm going to talk to you about that today too. All right, step 1. Let's get a little refreshment. For our drink today, this is an interesting one. So this says Blake's Hard Cider, and it's triple jam, strawberry, blackberry, and raspberry. So I like any kind of hard cider, but this one's a pretty good one. It's not my favorite, but I like it. So I do feel like I've been a little disjointed in the videos. I know I've said this before, so you're probably getting tired of hearing this, but I've been in education for 20-some years, 26, 27, something like that. I started out in the English, actually I started out in the Spanish classroom. How about that one? And I taught that for 2 years, and then I moved to Ohio and I taught English for 2-3 years-ish, and then I moved into the library. For 20-some years, they eliminated that librarian position, and so I'm back in the English classroom. So things have been different since August. I really do love it, so I'm not even gonna pretend like I don't love it. I really miss my library, and I am a librarian by trade, but I have exceptional children this year, and I don't mean like they're so bright that that's not what I mean. I do have some bright ones, but I love them. They're just super interesting human beings. They are entertaining. I enjoy them. I've learned so much, and I actually don't hate teaching English, which I did not really like it the last time I taught it. So not even going to complain there. However, it's a bit of an adjustment on my time. So I just really want to kind of regroup a little bit, get myself back on track. My goal is to do at least 1 video per month from here on out. Again, I do these mainly for therapy. I'm not going to get rich and famous off of this, and I'm okay with that. I started it when we did the COVID remote learning. I was doing book reviews for my students, and then kind of from there, I'm like, I really enjoy doing this. Like, this is really therapeutic to be able to talk about my books in depth and to connect with people that way. I've gained 91 subscribers as of today, so I feel like, it's a good thing out there. Some people are appreciating it. I feel like we've got a good community going on, and so I'm running with it. So I just clicked over to my YouTube, and it's actually 92. So this morning when I saw something, it was 91, but it looks like I've gained a subscriber today, so I can't even tell you how ridiculous that makes me happy. Can we all just pause for a moment and again love the bookshelves that my lovely husband, John Lovin, made during COVID? So if there's anybody out there that says nothing good came of COVID, just snap a picture of this right here. Before I forget, I am going to mention my book t-shirt. I don't know if you picked up on this or not, but I always wear a book shirt, something honoring book love in each of my videos. This one is malapropism. It's a noun. It's ludicrous misuse of a word, especially by confusion with one of a similar sound. There you go. All right, looks like I stopped with The Knife of Never Letting Go. So I'm still going to have to talk to you about that book because I think the correct word there is it haunts me. I mean, it haunts me. And I know that it is in the movie theaters. It's on special like TV on demand. I have not watched it yet, but my kids are watching clips of it. I don't even understand how that happens. Apparently there are clips on TikTok or something that they, you know, they're watching them and they don't even realize it's coming from the book. So let me do a quick recap. I chose Lagom as my word of the year. Basically means balance. It comes from Swedish. My co-worker, one of my best friends that teaches right next door, she married a Swedish guy. And I can't remember, I think she gave me this book. I'm pretty sure she gave it to me. This is a beautiful book. I've already talked about it. Then I read Premeditated Mortar. You may recall that I am one of Kate's readers. Kate's Raiders? I can't remember what we call ourselves. I think it's, or what she calls us. I think it's Kate's Raiders. But she will often mail us the book as it is published, and then we throw some reviews out there. Honest reviews. Yes, free books, but honest reviews. But I love the Kate Carlisle series. I'm actually listening to one of her books right now. Which one am I listening to? Books of a Feather, which is part of the Bibliophile series. I'm going back and making sure I caught all of those. I have already talked to you about The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. Haunting book. I'm hoping that somewhere in here you can see because there's some weird graphics. Here we go. There you go. Some weird kind of graphics in this book. But one of my students, one of my first period students, read the series. She pulled it off the shelf. We had a copy of it in the library, and she said, Miss Lovin, you should really read this book. And I started reading it, and I thought, I don't want to read another apocalyptic book. I don't. I'm done. Like, it's depressing enough out here. And then as I start reading it, I'm like, this is very unique. This is very unlike every other apocalyptic teenage book I've read. So just some really interesting things going in there. He writes beautifully. I know it's disturbing. It's extremely disturbing. The premise of the book is extremely disturbing. The main character is a young boy who is forced to flee the only thing that he has known. And he doesn't know why. There are two people who are raising him. I believe they're his brothers. And, you know, they're like, you have to leave right now. We're sorry that we haven't explained to you what's happening. You got to get out of here. And he does. He doesn't understand what's happening, but they can hear other people's thoughts. It's just part of something that has happened where they are now and how the world has progressed. And not too long after he starts fleeing, he runs into a girl. He's never seen a girl before. Again, the way that the world is set up, things have not allowed women to live. So he runs into a girl and he can't hear her thoughts. And he has no experience with that. So super, super good book. Please read it. I know it sounds awful. It is an awful premise. But my gosh, is it well written. You will not regret reading this book. I believe it's a set of 3. I did talk about it in episode 16. I'm not sure how much I got to talk about it, but I can't help myself. You need to read this book. I did that a little bit out of order. After Lagom and Premeditated Murder, let me look at my notes. I did Willink's Extreme Ownership. I listened to that on audio, and he and the co-author read that audio book. That was fabulous. I did already talk to you about that one. Vuillard The Order of the Day. I know I already talked about that one. I can actually remember my conversation about that one. And I read that with my book club. So again, tons of conversation on that one. Then I read The Knife of Never Letting Go. Then I did Magpie Murders. This is so fun. Anthony Horowitz. And so this is where I am now. I know that I mentioned this book to you in my previous episode because I was reading it, but I had either just finished it or I hadn't finished it when I talked to you before, and I need to talk to you about this book. Let me check my notes real quick. I feel like there's something that I'm not telling you about The Knife of Never Letting Go that I loved. It's that I called it an uncomfortable read. I think that's it. It is an uncomfortable read. You know, I'm an English teacher. I like when people speak correctly and use correct grammar. And this one does not. He uses really weird words and his sentence structure is terrible. But if you will just hang on for a minute, you'll see that there's a reason why that happens. They're uneducated. There's a reason why that is. So I just had to hold on long enough and let myself just be uncomfortable long enough to really get into the meat of the story. And it really didn't take long. It really didn't. Like I said, I started reading it. I'm like, oh, I don't want to read this. And then immediately I was like, I don't know. There's something funny going on here. I have to say one of the main things that I have to say about Patrick Ness is this guy's got talent. He's really got talent. He takes his time to set up the world. He doesn't like say, here's the rules of the world. He lets you figure out how some things work and what some things are. And he assumes that his reader is smart enough to stick around and figure it out. Those conversations between Todd and Viola are just precious. The conversations between Todd and Ben, I mean, it just, like, I would flip back and reread the conversation because so much was left unsaid that it's moving. It's a moving apocalyptic novel. And I do have to say, this is kind of like that Walking Dead thing with me. I really respect when an author or a writer of a show is not afraid of death. They're not afraid of surprising you and just letting the story happen like it should without making it formulaic. I really respect that. So you do know that I am a librarian by trade, therefore I always have to look at that verso page, and this is one of those that's really, really good. The short summary is, pursued by power-hungry Prentice and mad Minister Aaron, young Todd and Viola set out across New World searching for answers about his colony's true past and seeking a way to warn the ship, bringing hopeful settlers from the old world. And then one of the things I love about a verso page that I read out to my kids all the time is on that verso page, it talks to you about actual subjects, like librarian cataloging subjects. And the subjects in this: science fiction, social problems fiction, telepathy fiction, human-animal connection fiction, you know I'm all in for that, space colonies fiction. That's a lot. We're gonna squeeze all of that into this book. The other titles of the books in the series, The Ask and the Answer and Monsters of Men. So those are definitely on my to-be-read list. I will continue this series. It's beautiful writing. It will be an easy one for me to recommend to my kids. Now, you know, little warning there. This is not school sponsored, obviously, but there's language in here. There are very uncomfortable situations. There's just horrific violence in here. But that being said, it takes a little while to get to know who's ready for that or who's not, but I let my kids know that they're responsible for choosing their own books, that I have a wide variety on those shelves. If I see a kid with a book I think they're not ready for, I might have a conversation to say, hey, if you don't like that, if it's too much, just put it back on the shelves. If somebody else might be interested in that, you might not be. And this is one that when the girl picked it up and started reading, I'm like, that's interesting. And then after I read it, I'm like, that's pretty mature. But she, now that I've seen her as a reader, she's totally ready for that. She totally appreciates that. I'm so glad that she recommended it to me. One of the other things that I love looking for in a book like this is when it puts a quote at the very beginning. And this one has such an odd one for this book. It is from George Eliot's Middlemarch. If we had a keen vision and feeling of all ordinary human life, it would be like hearing the grass grow and the squirrel's heart beat, and we should die of that roar which lies on the other side of silence. What? So highly recommend, highly recommend. I've had a good reading start to the year. This is not an easy read, so if you are looking for a cozy mystery, stick with the Kate Carlisle over here. But if you are looking for true mystery, this is your book. I mean, it's so fun, and I don't even know how to describe to you how fun this book is, because I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't quite sure what, to go with. He writes all kinds of different things. He writes the Alex Rider series, which right now is on Amazon Prime. We watched the whole first season. I love it. My husband loved it, which I'm kind of surprised. He is a young adult British, spy because his parents have passed away. And of course, mysterious circumstances. He's being raised by an uncle who he thinks is super boring. And then he ends up dying mysteriously. He finds out he's a British spy. It's so good. It's just really, really well done. I really enjoyed it. Action-packed, adventurous. fast-paced. I just really liked it. And he also did that. So he just has his hands in so much stuff. And then I find out that I really like, I think there's another show called New Blood, if I'm not mistaken. Did I write that down? I think it's called New Blood. It's on Acorn or BritBox. And it's one of those that I watched it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is real. I really enjoy this. The humor is there. And then, oh, Anthony Horowitz is a writer. So it's just interesting how he has his hand in a lot of these. Now, this is a series, again, another one I will totally continue with. I don't have the next one. It's called Moonflower Murders, but has the same main character. So I like those. I think that's pretty cool. I know that Anthony Horowitz has also helped write some of the continuing James Bond stories and the Sherlock stories. So again, he just has his hand in everything. It takes place in London, England. So, you know, we've had some very different settings here. The Knife of Never Letting Go is a fictional future. I don't know if does it say? It just calls it the New World, so you're not quite sure exactly where they are, I don't think, in The Knife of Never Letting Go. New Blood is on BBC. The story starts off with Susan Ryland. She's an editor. She's telling you her story in first person, and then she immediately is picking up a book. I don't think this is going to come out. I picked this book up, I believe in Little Nashville, in a used bookstore / coffee shop. I don't know if this is going to come across in the video, but it starts off Magpie Murders, Anthony Horowitz, Magpie Murders, and then you start reading in Crouch in London, and you're reading the story of Susan, the editor. And then she picks up the book, here we go. She picks up the book, Magpie Murders, an Atticus Pond Mystery by Alan Conway. So now you start reading a different book, right? So you read a little bit of that, and you can see it looks just like you've started a whole new book, because there's that. And then you've got this about the author. Remember, the author is Alan Conway. And then it's the Atticus Pond series, and it tells you the other books that are in the series. Praise for Atticus Pond, the character. And then the first chapter is called Sorrow, and you start reading, right? So then you start reading that book, and you don't get too awful far. It looks like chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then it starts another chapter. And I had to stop, and I'm like, wait a minute. Am I in Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz, or am I in Magpie Murders by Alan Conway? Still in Conway's book. So you continue, right? A couple more chapters, sections. Then there's part 3. So I read part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, part 6. I apologize if you're hearing the dog playing with their squeaky toy or the washer running, but this is real life. I actually just do this on the side. I know it's shocking. And then not long after you start this part 6, so you can see how far we are along in the book. Here's the front, right? Not long after we start part 6, labeled Gold, it stops abruptly with the line, "He killed his wife." And then I turn the page, and now we're back in Crouch in London. What? So again, Susan is kind of laying out the story, right? She's talking about reading the manuscript that we've just all read with her, and then she's upset because it stops. It's obviously not a full manuscript. What's happening here? And then even after she goes through like the characters, like she has basically like notes on the manuscript, then that starts off and it says Cloverleaf Books. And it's like it starts over again. It says, "My name is Susan Ryland, and I'm the head of fiction at Cloverleaf Books. The role isn't as grand as it sounds, as there are only 15 of us and a dog in the building, and we produce no more than 20 books a year." And then she goes on to talk about like that they produce Magpie Murders, like that's one of their biggest clients. It's just weird. It's kind of choppy the way that happens, right? And then there's a letter because she finds out that that author is dead, and there's a letter from him that shows up. And so you're left with like a mystery. It's kind of slapped in between there. It's just, It's just odd. So I think I was expecting like an easy read. That's what I thought. I thought Alan Horowitz, my first introduction to him was young adult literature. He had these Alex Rider series, Stormbreaker, that sort of thing. And I'm like, oh, he writes for young adults. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe these books are written for adults. You know, he has young adult books and he has adult books. That's not uncommon for an author to have both. But when I started reading this, I'm like, this is really complex. Like, I need to back up and pay attention. Try and figure out, am I reading a book within a book? A mystery within a mystery? What's happening here? So she not only tells us her story, and then she starts telling us about Alan Conway, the author of the book within the book, Magpie Murders. And then she starts talking about knowing Alan and how this all came about. So that is the mystery within the mystery. There's an excerpt, like after she starts telling you the story again, there's an excerpt from another part, something else by Alan Conway. She tells you a little bit about each of the mysteries along the way, not necessarily mysteries as in his mystery books, but just the mystery of Alan Conway. There's a section where Alan Conway's sister, like sister in real life, talks. I say in real life, I mean in Alan Conway's fictional real life. She returns back to Cloverleaf books and the relationship between Cloverleaf, her, and Alan Conway. And this whole time, it's like she's trying to solve the mystery of the book, like the mystery that's within the book, and then also the mystery of Alan Conway, like, how did he die? Is this a murder? What's going on? How are these people connected? How does the book and what's happening in real life, in real fictional life, how do these things match up? It's complex. I love that there's a chapter called Endgame, because look how far, I'm almost to the end here. It's called Endgame, and I am still confused and interested. So there is a conclusion. There's a conclusion to the book within the book. There's a conclusion to the book. It is a series, so we're going to continue on with Susan and find out what happens later. She does make a couple of big life choices towards the end of the book. And then I am going to read to you about the author in the end. Anthony Horowitz is the author of the New York Times bestseller Moriarty and the internationally bestselling The House of Silk, as well as the New York Times bestselling Alex Rider series for young adults. As a television screenwriter, he created Midsummer Murders and the BAFTA, the BAFTA-winning Foyle's War on PBS, and he lives in London. I've not watched Foyle's War. The whole word war usually turns me off, although I do like British shows. I'm not big on the historical war ones. I don't know why. But I do love the Alex Rider series, and one of my absolute favorites is Midsummer Murders, and I highly recommend that you go back and watch that from the very beginning. In Midsummer Murders, the main detective does change two times, I think. So there's a lot of characters, families that change, and I wouldn't even say that I have favorites. Some of the secondary detectives also change numerous times throughout the show, and I love it. I really, really love it. I love the score, the opening musical score that comes through. It's comfort, it's hygiene. It's Huga. I really love it. Here's a picture of the second book, the cover of what that's going to look like. Again, I don't have that yet. I need to get it. Sometimes I have to be like, oh, do I want to give it 3 stars, 4 stars? I mean, on both of these, this is why I said 2021 has started out fabulously. I'm like, 5 stars, like no question, 5 stars. Like if you can keep me that entertained through this size of a book when I have a short attention span, you're a winner. You're a 5-star winner. The next book that I finished was The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. But this one I have through NetGalley. On NetGalley, I think the big thing is that they give them to you and you should get them done in a very small turnover. And I'm not doing so great with that. Wife Upstairs, no problem. So easy. Such a thrilling listen. I listened to it on audio. I think that was the perfect way to do it. My sister actually listened to it like not too long like after I had finished it. And it was one of those where I told her I'm like, you should listen to this. It's really good. She likes audiobooks too. And when I would be like, where are you? Where are you? Oh, where are you now? Just wait. And she got to a certain part and she sent me a message and I thought she was in traffic. And she was like, call the police. And I thought, oh my gosh, has she had a wreck? What's happened? I called her and she said, no, I'm listening to the audiobook. Why don't they call the police? I'm like, exactly. Now I know exactly where you're at. It isn't often that I get to like the last hour of an audiobook and I think, I am still so confused. And Stella does have her tennis ball there. I am so confused and I'm not really sure how you're going to end this. There's no good way to end this. It's that kind of a conflict. I'm sorry, we're going to have to play ball later. This book was introduced as a Jane Eyre retelling. I understand that. Like, I get it. There's definitely a modern Jane Eyre feel to it. I might have expected it to play a little closer to the plot line. Yeah, this is one of those that I don't want to tell you too much. I'm just going to tell you, you need to either listen to it or you need to read it. If you like thriller, you like suspense, you like modern writing, this is it. Now, that being said, I don't want you to think I'm a prude. I am not. But the young people these days might have a bit of a potty mouth. And if you're not used to that in the books that you read, then this one sometimes is a little jarring at how dark the main character is. Now, she's a broken character. She's got a lot of baggage behind her. One of the things that I think Rachel Hawkins does in this book is that she flips people around on the ones that you think that you're going to, that you think you know. You think you know. You're like, I know these people. And you're feeling all judgmental. And then you're like, ooh, I'm sorry. I am really sorry that you had to go through that. Or, oh, I cannot believe people are treating you that way. And then you're like, oh yeah, people are treating you that way. You know why they're treating you that way? So this is definitely one of those that makes you step back and say, maybe don't judge a book by its cover. Pun intended. So that gothic feel of Jane Eyre might be lost a little bit, that classic literature on the potty mouth of the main character. But again, as long as you're not like driving down the road with your window down listening to this, I don't think you're going to be embarrassed by if somebody were to hear you listening to it. It's not like that, but I am used to listening to young adult literature or reading young adult literature or, you know, like, I don't know, just more mainstream books that maybe don't use that kind of language so much, other than my Penny Reads that might be a little steamy, but I've learned my lesson on those and always have the AirPods in. The other book that I read by Rachel Hawkins years ago was Hex Hall, which was a young adult book. So when this one said it was coming out, it was the Jane Eyre retelling, and it was an adult book. It was her first book written for adults, I believe. I thought, interesting, because I really did like Hex Hall. It was really fun. This is a fun book, but this shows some big talent. So Hex Hall is like a light, young adult, popular kind of book. This one is intricate and it's fun. I also like the fact that B's business is called Southern Manners, which I feel like might be a little bit of a play on several brands that are out there right now. I thought that was interesting. So although I don't have a picture, here's that Goodreads picture. Remember, check out my reviews on Goodreads. And I reviewed this one several places because I was doing it for NetGalley. So thank you again, NetGalley, for letting me read that before it was published. The next book that I read was out of my classroom. It's called Touching Spirit Bear by Ben Mikaelsen. It's a Napper Nautilus Award winner. And this has been out there a long time. It says ages 10 and up. I would probably agree with that if you're a mature age 10. There are a couple scenes in here that is truly disgusting. I'm sure he puts those in there because he knows boys like to read about disgusting things. It was definitely a boy in my class who said, "You've never read Touching Spirit Bear? How have you never read Touching Spirit Bear?" I love that book, so of course I have to read it. Fast read, especially for an adult reader. I really liked it. Main character is 15-year-old Cole Matthews. He has had a rough time growing up. He has questionable ethics. He does an act of violence on another young man, and he's given the choice of going to jail or trying this different kind of punishment. What do they call it? It's not on here. It doesn't. Oh, circle of justice. So Cole chooses that circle of justice, but in the first few days, you can tell he's not into it. Like, he's doing this to get out of his actual punishment of having to go to jail for a very long time. And so he's just not really into it. And he quickly has a come to Jesus moment where he does realize that he needs to make some changes. Like, this is his responsibility. Something's going on here, and the universe is talking to him. That might be Spirit Bear. I need to pause my YouTube video that I was checking on what I did the last review on. It's an interesting one, especially for people who work with young kids. You know, I just had a student who got into a fight, and another teacher and I were talking about the fact that really going through some struggles, and what are we going to do? We're going to suspend him, and are we going to give him, you know, anybody to talk to? Or are we going to have him go through count? What are we going to do? We're going to suspend him. That's what we do. And it just it doesn't work. It doesn't work. In my classroom, it doesn't work. If, you know, people are acting up or somebody misbehaves or whatever, for me to hand out a detention or, you know, just to yell at them, it doesn't work. So I thought this was really interesting, talking about the circle of justice. It definitely points out the importance of mentors, or earning the respect of somebody and not demanding it. This was really good. It is a really good book. I could have done without some of the disgusting scenes, but definitely one that is easy to recommend. I will also always pick up those books that point out the community of a person, that sometimes it's not your family who steps up and is your community, but it might be, again, a mentor, someone who recognizes that you need help. It might be a friend. You don't know who's going to be your community, and I will always pick up those books and have that talking point, especially in our community. Highly recommend Touching Spirit Bear by Ben Mikaelsen. So this next one I read, again, because it was in my classroom, and I know some of our teachers have spent some time teaching it. It's the Autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. So this is the one that I read. It's the Dover Thrift Edition, so that I could go through and mark it up. I am glad that I read this. I'm not sure if I would use the word enjoy. I am always pleasantly surprised when I'm reading something that is this classic, that it has so much to share, that there's some humor that's always in there, or just where I can pull out whole paragraphs that I am able to share in the classroom today. I don't know why, that always just surprises me, but it does. Now in this one, Ben Franklin shares his biography. He shares his story prior to being famous, obviously, his family life, and his ideas for how to be a better person. That has been a theme that we have worked on this year in my classroom. It's ridiculous how many kids put it in their journals or in their writing, how they really do want to be better people. They recognize that they have faults, and they are not sure how to take the next step. So I think that that's a great thing. We've talked a lot about goal setting. And in this particular one, he talks about his system for becoming a better person, choosing certain characteristics. We talked about virtues when I was reading this, and I was able to share with them the virtues that he wrote down, that he does habit tracking on. And we mentioned some other virtues, and everybody kind of picked some that they thought that they might like to work on. He also talks about his daily schedule, which is a big thing. He's big on time management. The whole Franklin Planner Corporation is based on the fact that Benjamin Franklin was be more productive kind of person. So I am glad that I read this. I have been meaning to read it for a long time, and there's some great information in here. It's a quick read. It's dry in places, but there's some good stuff in there. I had forgotten that Benjamin Franklin is responsible for Poor Richard's Almanac. I thought that was interesting. It's always interesting to hear from our founding fathers and what life was like during that time, how they got involved in that whole process. Franklin was a Freemason, a postmaster, a scientist, and an innovator, a founding father. We will talk about Freemasons in a minute here with lost symbol, But interesting to get that backstory. And I need to get some nonfiction in this year. I'm not doing a great job on that. So what am I? This is only my... Oh, no, that's not true. I did Lagom. I did the Willink, the... what was that called? Extreme Ownership. And then I've done this. That's not too bad when we're only in the 3rd month. That's not terrible. The next one that it's embarrassing that I'm just now reading is The Tales of Beedle by J.K. Rowling, the Harry Potter universe, which we all know I absolutely love. Would love to do a pull-out video just on that Harry Potter series, as if there aren't enough videos out there. But we all have our own appreciations for the Harry Potter universe. So I did read this one. It's a series of short stories that are within the Harry Potter universe. And especially that last one, The Tale of the Three Brothers, comes up in that last book and is such a big part of that. But I enjoyed reading this. The nice thing about this book is purchasing it. The proceeds, J.K. Rowling gave all of the proceeds to the, J.K. Rowling gave all of the proceeds to the Children's High Level Group, which is a nonprofit helping children. So that was really interesting. I don't feel like I need to say too much about this, but it's well worth it. You can see here that I picked it up at the thrift store, $3 there for this nice hard copy edition. So I love it. These are fairy tales for wizards. Luckily for us, Hermione Granger translates the stories for us. There's some commentary by Dumbledore. So after, watching the whole Harry Potter series, reading all those books, I'm glad that we get a chance to check out books that are in the Hogwarts library. Rowling actually does the illustrations, which is insane that she does the illustrations within the book as well as writing it. So I've read this and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, that are 2 books that are in the Hogwarts library. So I think there's some, I have to do Quidditch for the Ages still. I don't have a copy of that one. So if you're a Harry Potter fan, it is a must read. The next book that I read is Winterdance by Gary Paulsen. This has been on my to-be-read list forever. Love Gary Paulsen. He is the children's or young adult author who wrote the Hatchet series. I knew that he had some books for adults. I feel like I've dipped in and out of a couple of them. This particular one is The Fine Madness of Running the Iditarod. And just perfect timing to read this book in the winter. The Iditarod started last week or 2 weeks ago. It hasn't been going that long. So I need to check back in and see how that goes, because at the time I was reading the book and they were getting ready to start the Iditarod, and I'm like, this is interesting. Who does this? And come to find out, Gary Paulsen, the author, does this. I think, as I recall, he talks to you, I think he's done it twice. But he talks to you about the preparation for it, the drive for why he wanted to do it. He was fueled by that passion of just running those dogs and doing something that was really, really difficult. And it was. It was really, really difficult. At times it's humorous to read. At times it's just painful, because I think that when you are obsessed with something that is like this, it's not just you that's going through it, it's your whole family. It sounds as though his family was very supportive. I had a hard time putting together like when in his career a lot of this stuff happened. That part was a little bit more difficult for me, but the writing, the descriptions of him preparing and then running this, I really enjoyed it. There are also some photographs in the middle of him, the dogs, where he was at, the running, some of the places that he talks about, some of the people that he talks about. So that's interesting. It's in the middle of it. So highly recommend, but maybe wait until next winter. The next book that I read was on my Kindle, and that is Beard Science by Penny Reid. This is another one that I want to do a breakout video of. I love all things in the universe of Penny Reid and her Smarty Pants romance. This is an odd one because technically, how does this fall? Yes, it is number 3 in the Winston Brothers series. It's Beard Science. It's by Penny Reid. This one, is Cletus and Jen, the story of Cletus and Jen. I love all things Penny Reid, and this is no exception. All right, in this point in the video, my hair is starting to get on my nerves. I want to talk books, not be playing with my hair. So the story focuses on Cletus and Jen. Jen is a complicated character. She is unlike any of the characters that we've read about before. I probably say that in every one of the Penny Reid ones, though. Her characters are so unique. Some of them you might personally identify with, but even if you don't identify with them, you recognize them in other people, maybe your girlfriends or your family members even, and you feel for them. You want them to find happiness, and luckily in all of the Penny Reid books, they find their happiness. That's one of the reasons that I love them. So Cletus and Jen, although their relationship starts in a blackmail situation, it quickly turns into a friendship and then also into a romance. So that's what I'm looking for when I'm reading Penny Reid. You need to be predictable when I'm reading a Penny Reid because that's why I'm reading it. I like that it kept talking about the banana cake queen, the banana cake queen, the banana cake queen. I love that. I don't know, it has such a rhythm to it. I really enjoyed it. As always, a bit of a disclaimer, although I talk about children's books, Newberries, adult fiction, any of the Penny Reids, they are smarty pants romance and they're a bit steamy. So these are not for the faint of heart or for the prude. Even though I know I really did sound like a prude when I was talking about the wife upstairs, I'm not. I'm really not. I think I just wasn't expecting it in that book because I don't read a lot of modern fiction where the characters are like 20-somethings. I don't know why, I don't really read that. And I do realize that the true 20-something character probably does have a bit of a potty mouth. I work in education, so we really have to temper our language. So as always, highly recommend Penny Reid. And Beard Science is no exception. The next book that I just finished not too long ago, picked it up in my classroom. I have a copy in the classroom, so I wanted to read it so I can recommend it, is the Dan Brown book, The Lost Symbol. I've read several of the Dan Brown books. I've read Angels and Demons and the Da Vinci Code. So I had missed reading The Lost Symbol, and then I read Inferno. So I went back and read The Lost Symbol. My next one is called Origin. I need to read that one. I don't know if I have a copy of that one or not. I'm going to have to look on that. But all of them have the same main character, which is Robert Langdon. He's a symbologist. I think all of Dan Brown's books talk about organizations with secrets. This is no exception. It is super interesting. It follows the Freemasons, so you get some background information there, and for them being such a organization with secrets, I don't know how he gets so much information. Who's sharing this stuff with you? I don't know. Yes, you should be able to do research on things, but they're so secretive. I thought that didn't all get out. It all gets out here. This is another one of those, like the Da Vinci Code, the first Dan Brown that I ever read, where you're reading it and you know you're reading fiction, but you're wondering, are you reading fiction? Has this really happened? And then you go and look and your eyes are open because you're seeing something in a new way. It definitely does that in this also. They're in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. has a number of secrets itself that Dan Brown brings out. Super interesting. His work begs you to look up information to see how much truth is in the fiction that he's writing. Great timing to read this book too, because it talks about the Capitol, and we are currently in March of 2021. In January of 2021, we endured an attack on our own Capitol by our own people, and it was horrifying to watch the images of our own people going in there and disrespecting the Capitol. I'm a religious person, so it's one of those things that, like, there are certain sacred places, like, that you just don't do certain things in certain places because they're sacred, or there's some sort of an honor or a respect, even of a place, not only of just an institution, but like of a place. And so that was super shocking in January. Definitely something that all of us, I shouldn't say all of us, but I hope that most of us paused during and had to think about how we view our Capitol building. So Dan Brown shares some things about the Capitol building that I'm like, if that's true, man, some people had to be super nervous about these people just traipsing into the middle of all of that. So if you like rituals, organizations with secrets, high-paced, adventure, thriller, this is a book for you. I don't even know if I've held it up yet. Did I hold it up and show it to you? So it's about the same size as most of the Dan Brown books, but super, super interested in this series. I did some tabbing, lots of underlining, took notes on this one. It's that complicated. For me, that is the mark of a good book. If I'm, starting to read it and I'm like, I'm going to need a piece of paper and some Post-it notes, then it's probably going to hold my interest. And this definitely held my interest till the very end. I don't think they've made this into a movie. They need to. They have made Angels and Demons and Da Vinci Code are both movies. I don't think they've done Inferno yet either. No, I take that back. Inferno, I'm pretty sure, is also a movie and a fabulous book. I recommend any of the Dan Brown books. This is a great follow-up to Angels and Demons and the Da Vinci Code. So when we're talking about these kinds of organizations, their rituals, their information is closely guarded, but somehow Dan Brown gets that information and then weaves such a great narrative around it. This is a real page turner. So the next book that I read is, I'm going to say it, Fika. It's The Art of the Swedish Coffee Break with Recipes for Pastries, Breads, and Other Treats. It's by Anna Brones and Joanna Kindval. It looks like this. You might recognize that name because it is the same lady who did Live Lagom. I think that's how you say it. It is the same lady that did this, so let me hold that up. Both of these are from 10 Speed Press, so I can't remember which one. My friend Stephanie, who is married to a Swedish guy, I'm not sure which one she gave me and which one I purchased. I can't remember. But both of these are well worth the read. They're beautifully done. They're by 10 Speed Press. They're just really pretty books. This one, where I was talking to you about, this one's talking to you about balance and how to live your life with an amount of balance. This one is talking to you more about food and drink. The art of the Swedish coffee break, where it's not just taking a coffee break, but you must have pastries. And they have those recipes in here. She also talks to you about the things that you need, like the cooking implements, what you should have in your kitchen if you are looking to make these things, and just the thought that goes behind it. So it's not just like, hey, do you want a drink? But do you want to go and sit down and enjoy a beverage and a pastry and just pause? So really enjoyed this one too. And again, it's just a beautifully done book. So I'm really glad that I own these books. The next book that I read is Murder in Baker Street, New Tales of Sherlock Holmes. Okay, a bit of a confession here. After I put this on my list, I looked back and it said that I had read this in like 2003. I don't think I did. I think maybe I read something from it, maybe a couple of the stories or whatever, and laid it down. So I did pick this back up this year and I wanted to finish it. It's New Tales of Sherlock Holmes. They're featuring original stories by Anne Perry, Lauren Estelman, a list of other people that I don't recognize. They are using the character of Sherlock Holmes and Watson. A lot of the stories come from Watson's point of view. It's a well done book, but I didn't love it. Sorry, I didn't love it. I love Sherlock Holmes. I especially love the BBC television series of Sherlock Holmes. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. It's totally worth it. But some of these fell flat. Some of them were good. Some of them were okay. There were a couple that were really good, but not really worth reading the whole book. And then in the back, even though it says on here, New Tales of Sherlock Holmes, and that's how it reads. And even like in the contents, you are reading down through there to see maybe like who some of these authors are. And then it's got sidelights on Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And then there's another one that says, and now a word from Arthur Conan Doyle, and it's by John Lillenberg. So I also think it was just a tad bit confusing because I was reading along and all of a sudden I start a short story and it's by the author. So I'm just a little confused. I didn't love it. I think I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads. I will still continue to read the original Sherlock stories, and some new ones that come out. I feel like it wasn't too long ago I read a young adult one that was inspired. It was. Oh, I'll have to think about what that title is and pull that one for you. I can't think of the title, but it was really well done. It was a play on Sherlock and Watson, but it was modern day, and they were young adults that were at a boarding school, and it was the descendants of them. Oh, it was really well done. I really liked it, and I can't remember the title of it. I'm a huge Sherlock fan, but this one fell flat for me. I do love the concept of taking a beloved character and letting artists recreate new stories for them. I appreciate that the people who own the rights to Sherlock Holmes, that they allow that to happen. I think that's super, you know, it's basically what we would call fan fiction, right? But this is published fan fiction, and some of these people are probably so old that they probably don't know what fan fiction is, but that's what I would classify this as. For our book club, this last time that we met in March, maybe about a week ago, and it was a fabulous COVID-friendly book club. So I really appreciate the people who hosted that particular book club. If you happen to be listening, you did a fabulous job. We each had our own individual meals. It was so well done. We were spaced out, able to do what we love best, which is be able to talk about our books. So we read The Paris Architect. Is by Charles Belfoure. Oh, I actually borrowed it from somebody, and so I do have it. So I don't own this, but I did borrow this from Stephanie next door. She bought it. So it's The Paris Architect is by Charles Belfoure. It's one of those that I wasn't sure that I was really going to like it. I'm not a big historical fiction fan. We do quite a bit of historical fiction in our book club, and I almost always appreciate it after the fact. This is one of those books. It includes, as one of the text features, a map of Paris in there. It takes place during World War I. World War I? Yeah. 1939, 1945. It's during that that time period. It takes place in Vichy. I don't know if I'm saying that right. France. It's during the occupation. So the Nazis are there. The Germans are there. They have occupied France. And there is violence on the streets. You have them mixing with the French. The Jews are being treated. It's terrible. It's just terrible. And it's hard for me to gear myself up to read one of those. And yet every time I do, I'm honored to read their stories. Even when they're fictional stories, we know that fiction is usually influenced by someone's true story or stories. That these people, this is what happened. This is what society looked like. And I can appreciate that. So there's quite a bit of a story about the underground Jews, people that were hiding Jews. This Paris architect, this man who is helping someone build places in their home to hide Jews to keep them safe. He sees it more as facing a puzzle, trying to make that puzzle as an architect and use his talents. He is interested in that aspect of it. Originally, he is not interested in helping the Jews, taking a side or risking his life. This is probably one of the best stories of the growth of a character that I've ever read. When we were talking about it, a lot of people mentioned the same thing, that it was interesting to see him go from, I don't want to be a part of this, to, you know, you've appealed to the nature of what I like to do, which is being an architect, to what are we doing to our fellow human beings. Super, super good. It's a great story of repentance and the human existence. I highly recommend it. That is The Paris Architect by Charles Belfoure. And now I have to give that book back. The last book that I've read since the last time I talked to you is Creatively Productive by Lisa Johnson. I have a breakout video to review this book because I did it as an online class. As a teacher, you have to renew your license every 5 years, and you have to do 180 hours of continuing education units, or you have to get college credits, take college classes, however that, whatever. Anywho, that being said, our local educational service center offered a book study where you read the book, do some activities with it. So I read this, and normally I would be like, here's a book I read, we're good to go. But this is really good. I enjoyed this. I don't think it's just for educators. If you are interested in how to manage your online content, you know, that it's become one of those things that you might have a filing cabinet, you might have a notebook, you might have a planner, but now you have all those things in addition to the analog version. You have digital versions of all those things. So super interesting. She goes through a lot of apps, telling you how she uses them, how they help her, how she uses them in education. So definitely written toward the education field. But if you are interested in, again, how to organize your data or use apps to be more productive, this is a great book for you. I enjoyed it. I made a ton of notes, and I did a breakout session on that. So I'm not going to spend too much time here because I want to get to some of the other things that we normally talk about. So highly recommend it. Creatively Productive by Lisa Johnson. So that pretty much wraps it up for me. I will mention that I put this on my Hey, I Read It list because I don't know where else to put it. It's like this fold out. It's beautifully done. It's by Maurice, Sendak. It has this little fly leaf thing with illustrations from all of his children's books. So I have that also added on my, hey, I read it. There's a beginning and an end. I don't even know what you would call this, but I love it. And I'm putting it on my bookshelf, so I'm adding it to the list. I also read Edgar Allan Poe's A Valentine to my classes. So that's a poem that I'm going to put in the list of things that I've read this year. I didn't read the whole book, but this is the book that it came out of. It's Complete Stories and Poems of Edgar Allan Poe. So this is on my to be read list for sure, but I'm dipping in and out of it. We've done several things with Edgar Allan Poe this year, but I need to take some time to actually read the whole thing. But you can see there's what I'm talking about. So this one looks like I paid $4 for it somewhere. I don't know where, but this is a beautiful book of his work. So it's on my to be read list, the whole thing. I have marked The Telltale Heart because we were going to do it in class. We didn't get to that one. But then A Valentine is marked. Why do I have this marked? I don't know. Oh, I guess I read this in 1986. I had it marked on my things that I had read called The Bells. There we go. So I read that one then. Interesting. I got down 1986. I read The Telltale Heart. Cool. So that covers what I've added to my DaShannon's reading list of dates here. Quite a few. I did go back from the beginning of 2020 so that I could catch us up and you can see where I'm at for the year. That's a pretty big stack for me to have by the end of March, so I'm pretty proud of that. Remember that I did up my goal. I normally average more like 60 books. I top out at about 70 per year. And this year I have made my goal 100. I know we don't talk numbers a lot. It's not about the numbers. It's not a competition. But when I went back and reflected on my last year, even during a COVID year, I know that I wasted some time. And again, my word for 2021 is balance. So I'm trying to balance more the reading every day, watching television. I love TV and movies. And the scrolling through social media or creating social media content. I'm trying to balance those things. And I know that if I balance them, it would be somewhat easy for me to get through 100 books. So just focusing a little bit more there this year. And it is different this year for me because at the start of 2020, I was still in the library and reading a lot of books for work, being just young adult. And I decided that I'm shifting that focus. And yes, I want to read, young adult for my classroom. But I also feel like I've really missed out on modern fiction and some nonfiction that I've really been wanting to read. So that's my focus. Let me move these to the side. So in addition to the books that I have read since the beginning of 2021 and the last video that I talked to you, I have also recommended a number of ones that I've read in previous years. And I noticed that they were not in Goodreads. So I do want to throw some of those out to you also. Remember, all the books that I talk about are recommended on, all the books that I talk about are reviewed on Goodreads as I'm going through the videos. So I just started doing these like last March when COVID hit. So now I'm like, I really enjoy doing this. I want to continue and I want to review all the books that I've read that are in my library, as well as talking to you about the books that are on my to be read list. So one of the books that I would highly recommend, and I wish I would have gotten them, I wish I would have done these seasonally. So another one of my goals is to recommend to you seasonal books before the season hits, not after. But this is a beautiful book. It's called The Snowflake. It is, the text is by Kenneth Librick and the photographs are by Patricia Rasmussen. It's Winter's Secret Beauty. It is just beautiful. So these photographs are of snowflakes up close. They talk to you about the science of snowflakes. This is a picture book, but in addition to it being a picture book, the text is rather complicated. So I would highly recommend it for people who enjoy snowflakes, people who enjoy photographs, people who like to read the nonfiction science behind the snowflake. Super interesting, beautiful book. I remember purchasing this when my son was younger. Being a young boy, he was more interested in science than fiction. And this was one of those that we brought out every season, flip through, look at the pages, and then he grew into some of that text. So Just a beautiful, beautiful book, and I highly recommend it. Another book that I've mentioned a couple times in my videos, I have the movie on my to-be watched list, but I have not done that, is Nicholas Sparks' Nights in Rodanthe. So I did just put this out there on Goodreads because I had not reviewed it before, so I reviewed this back in February. I remember purchasing this book from Joseph Beth Independent Booksellers here in Cincinnati, down in Rookwood. If you've not been there and you're anywhere in the Cincinnati area, drive there now and purchase some books from this independent bookstore. They do a fabulous job. They were hosting Nicholas Sparks. He was coming to talk at Joseph Beth one night, so you had to purchase the tickets, purchase the book. So you can see this particular one. Oh, I think it has, well, it just says September 28th, so I don't know. Oh, it had to be the year that this was published. There you go. So here's my bookmark that whenever I had to buy my place in line. Let's see, May of 2005, I think, is when this happened. And here is where he wrote the inscription when I was standing in line to meet him. And I remember that he was very nice whenever I told him that my name was DaShannon and he was asking to spell it, that he commented how different it was. And, you know, I just remember he endeared himself to me because I'm like, oh, he's actually friendly. Like, he's not name, thank you, name. Like, he had a conversation and there were people waiting in line and he took the time to recognize each of his readers. So I just remember it was a really good talk. I enjoyed this particular book. This is one probably of my favorites of his. It might be because I got it that particular evening, but I enjoyed reading this one. There's definitely a romance going on, as always in Nicholas Sparks. There are two people. It's very symbolic that there's the storm going on. There's storms going on in each of their lives, and can they find each other and can they calm the storm? So it's really good. I enjoy it. I enjoy all things Nicholas Sparks. I haven't read one in a really long time though, and my students are back onto the kick of reading them. So I'm gonna have to pick up some Nicholas Sparks probably this summer and kind of dip my toe back in there. I probably haven't mentioned my earrings. I don't know if I've worn these. I'm sure I've worn these on the video before. I'll see if I can get a better picture and put it in there for you. But we have this group called Shoebox Crafters, and I think there are 7 of us. And we get together and we make crafts together. And this was one of our crafts one time. I think my mom did this one. So it's a little piece of leather, and then you can see it has little book pages in there. So it's a little miniature book. And these are those earrings that when I wear them, somebody always seems to be like, they're talking and they'll be like, are those books in your ears? And it was really interesting this particular year that it was one of my very non-observant boys that was talking to me, and they were like, are those books in your ears? I said, yes, they're little book earrings. I made them. And he was like, wow, those are really cute. Thank you. Thank you for noticing. So that's a bit of a sidebar. I also have on my book LuLaRoe leggings. I'll see if I can get a good picture of those that don't include my thighs. Some other Nicholas Sparks books that I've read: The Notebook, A Walk to Remember, The Wedding, The Guardian, Dear John. Those are some other Nicholas Sparks books that I've read and I have super enjoyed. There's almost always a movie about his books. This one I picked up and reviewed for you. It's Jennifer Weiner's. That's how I'm going to say her last name. I should probably look that up. But it's called Good in Bed because I had recommended some other books of hers over the summer. And I didn't have a copy of this at the time, and I picked it up somewhere. I didn't make a note of where I picked this one up, but I picked it up somewhere. And this is one of my favorite ones by her. Now, when we're talking about like chick lit, normally you think of a book that's a much smaller than this one. This is pretty hefty for like a light chick lit. And I think it's probably one of her longer ones too. She also did In Her Shoes and Little Earthquakes. I also read one by her called Swim. I think it was a short story, but it sticks with me more than some books stick with me. And it was a short story, if I'm not mistaken. I have several of her other ones. I have Little Earthquakes, The Next Best Thing, Good Night, Nobody, and Certain Girls. So I'm hoping to read one of those this summer. I really like Jennifer Weiner. I mean, any of the books that I've read of hers are just, they're ones that stick with you. So there's usually humor and romance and tragedy, but good, what I would call chick lit books. She does have some snippets, like some characters, and I think it's character in Good in Bed shows up in her shoes as like somebody that she runs to in the park. You know, because of the name that she calls the dog, and you know that that's that character's dog's name. It's super like unique or something. So I think that's an interesting thing that she throws in there. I read this book with our book club back in 2001. It's one of the first books I feel like that we read in our book club. And I remember my husband, when I was reading, he was like, what kind of book club is this? Because we had done it with our staff at school. So it's not really one that you would think that the staff's going to read. But we weren't at the school. We had our book club. It quickly moved off-site so we could enjoy adult beverages and bring food and just really enjoy the book club. It would make a great beach read. I know I did a segment last year in one of my earlier videos on some books that I would recommend for the beach. And I think that's when I did her other ones. I would definitely recommend her for a great beach read. A little bit heavier. So like if you maybe enjoy a good beach read that's super light, but then you want something a little meatier, these are a little meatier. The main character is, not a size 2. I think that's how I want to describe her. She's not a size 2. So when she finds out that her current boyfriend has written about loving like a larger woman, she is hurt. And she's on the journey of learning to accept herself, love herself, or change. And what she wants to change about each of those things, whether it's her physical, her mental, or her personality. She kind of tackles that and decides that she's going to be the one to tell people who she is. This particular book has a section in the back because this was a readers, WSP Readers Club. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but Simon, the publishing company, they published a conversation with Jennifer Weiner in the back. So that's kind of a nice text feature in this particular book too. She does a letter. There's a letter from the author in the very back to the Readers Club that this is their edition. In that, then she talks about her other 2 books, In Her Shoes and Little Earthquake. So just an interesting one, and this is a nice paperback copy that would be great to throw in your beach bag. Highly recommend any Jennifer Weiner, but especially Good in Bed. This one I picked up. I had already done a review, so it's not like I did a review here lately. Let's see here. I reviewed this back in April of 2019, but I think it's worth mentioning that this is a timely book that you might want to pick up. It's called Hope Never Dies. It's by Andrew Schaefer. That's what I thought. It's an Obama-Biden mystery. So it's a cute play on it. This is a book that I picked up at Cincinnati Books by the Banks, which is a local art festival that we have here every fall. And you can see here, Mr. Schaefer wrote me a nice little note in the front of the book. And I was waiting until we went back to the festival so that I could pick up the next edition, because I think there's 2 or 3 in the series. And I really wanted to buy them from him and have them inscribe them. And then we didn't get to have Books by the Banks this past fall. So that was pretty upsetting. There's some stinky stuff about COVID. But the bookshelves are a nice thing that came out of COVID. Also, the plants in the other corner that you can't really see. I can't wait to get those back on the porch, though. Like, they're not thriving in here. Even though it's a very sunny room. So you can see bookshelves, and bookshelves are here. But this whole side is windows. It's beautiful. Beautiful windows, very tall. But yeah, I don't know if it's the coldness of being by the window. I don't know. They're not doing great. I'm an outdoor plant person, apparently. But this particular mystery series, it's super humorous. It's been several months since the 2016 presidential election, and Uncle Joe Biden is puttering around his house, grouting the tile in his master bathroom, feeling lost and adrift in an America that doesn't make sense anymore. Not much has changed. But when his favorite Amtrak conductor dies in a suspicious accident, Joe feels a familiar desire to serve, and he leaps into the role of amateur sleuth with a little help from his old friend, President Barack Obama, codename Renegade. Together, they'll plumb the darkest depths of Delaware, traveling from cheap motels to biker bars and beyond, as they uncover the sinister forces advancing America's opioid epidemic. So, part action thriller, part mystery, part romance, and just to be clear, 100% fiction. Hope never dies, imagines life after the Oval Office for two of America's greatest heroes. Together they'll prove that justice has no term limits. This is not a commentary on politics at all. It's a humorous, fictional mystery series that I love and highly recommend. It looks like I also recently reviewed Nicholas Sparks' The Guardian. I forgot doing that. I'm sure it was for class. I'm also doing a book a day recommendation in class, and I'm going to do one big video. Maybe break that up. I don't know. But on that in the end. So the books that I'm reviewing, that I'm doing that for class, I'm not including that in our regular book series because it gets too long. You're going to see at the end of this, I'm like, how did I end up with 3 hours of footage? Because I really like talking about books. So I've got to get that down there. The Guardian by Nicholas Sparks, though, has a bit more of a stalking thing in there. He really tried his hand at a different kind of genre, so romance, but he threw that thriller in there on this one. So not my favorite Nicholas Sparks, not what I'm looking for from him, but it was an interesting one. I know I've mentioned this a couple of times too, so I'm going to throw it back out there one more time and tell you the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Marianne Schaefer and Annie Barrows. I've talked about this book before. I think, did I put it in there? Yeah, I had reviewed this back in November of last year, but I'm just going to recommend to you one more time, go watch the movie. Oh my goodness, go watch the movie. I love it. I love it. It actually came up at our last book club though, and somebody said that they didn't like the movie. But I think the reason I put this on here to talk to you one more time is you can see that I paid $8 for this one at I don't know where, but it was, it says it's $22 and then it shows that I paid $8 for that. So again, I don't pay retail for most of my books. In addition to the books that I read and reviewed, in addition to the books that I reviewed catching up on Goodreads, I've also recommended a number of the Newbery Book Award winners. And again, I'm going to pull that out in a separate video, so just going to set that aside for right now. But I did throw out a review for When You Reach Me by Rebecca Steed, and one for A Long Way from Chicago by Richard Peck. Also one that was not Richard Peck's Newbery, because he did A Long Way from Chicago and A Year Down Yonder, but then he did one called Something for Joey, so I know that one I threw out there too, but we're going to talk about those in a separate video. Because of Winn-Dixie by Kate DiCamillo, and The Tale of Despero by Kate DiCamillo. But I'm going to pull those Newberries out and do a separate video on those. All right, it's time to get serious. I'm going to have to pull the hair back. Okay, this video is getting long, and I am sorry about that. But again, it is what it is. I've got a lot to talk to you about. So the hair is going to have to go up, and now we're going to get in there and talk about that book haul. So some videos that I have planned for the summer. Talking about the Kate Carlisle. Being a Kate's Raider means that I have started reading them, and then I got interested in her work, and I ended up being one of her raiders. So she mails us free books, and then we put those reviews out there as soon as they hit publication. So I'd like to break up and do her series, the Cleo Coyle mystery series, another cozy mystery series. I'm going to break that out. Those videos seem to do really well for people who like to read cozies. The Alex Erickson series, the Coffee House mystery series, I plan to do a separate one on that. The Cat Who series, I have mentioned numerous books on that. I finished up that series not too long ago, doing all the reviews and adding those onto Goodreads and sharing those with you. So I'm going to break that out because, there's a ton of books there, and I want to just do a little bit more in depth on those. So hoping to do some of those in the summer, another one of my summer plans. I think it would be interesting to pull out the books that I've reviewed, the ones that have been turned into movies, and talk to you about the book to the movie. I think that would be kind of cool. Let me know what you think would be kind of cool, that you'd like to hear about. I love to hear it, and I'm all about just making the videos because they're fun. So what am I reading? I'm reading a bunch of different things right now. What is my problem? I can't focus. But I do want to, I take that back. I have started it, and then I sat it down, and I need to get back to it. Because they're making a movie this year of The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. Yes, A.J. Finn. And remember I shared that article of his story, and he's a psychopath. It was just ridiculous. You can't make this stuff up. So then after that, I'm like, I really want to pick that book back up and read it, because I think he must be a fabulous author to still be able to be published after all of his information is known. So that one's on my reading list, my short list. All right, so let's talk that book haul. One of the places that I went here in the last little bit and picked up quite a few books was the Valley Thrift Store down on Route 4. And I'm from Cincinnati, so I mean, I live an hour out of Cincinnati, but that's where I go. And the Valley Thrift Store down on Route 4 is one of the places that I've gone here lately and gotten some book hauls. So one of the books that I picked up there is Heaven is for Real. What I really like is when I have a book for my library and I can pick up for my home library, and I can pick up a book copy for my students in room 134 so that I can book talk it to them, have one there for them, and then have one here. So I have already read this book. It's a fabulous book. It's going to be an easy one to recommend. And I forgot to mention this part. It's easy to pick up books there because it's 99 cents. Super cheap. I flipped on a light, so we'll see how that changes on the video there because it's getting a little dark outside. In Ohio, we still do the time change. So I'm not going to talk too much about these books, but I do want to tell you some that I've got a copy of and then show you like it's 99 cents again. So this is Chicken Soup for the Soul. I had a copy in the school library, and there was a segment in here that I wanted to do a writing prompt with. So I was super happy that I actually found another copy. I'm not sure. I think these probably came from Goodwill. It doesn't have the sticker on it, so I'm guessing that's where this one came from. Oh, the Goodwill Boutique. That's what it was. That's the one I wanted to tell you about. So down in Montgomery, there is a Goodwill Boutique. So I love any Goodwill. I'll go and scrounge through. Don't really care. But at that boutique, they have a nice little like side room that has really only one bookshelf of books. It's hardly any. But they always seem to have some of the best titles. So that's where I picked this one up. So remember, I reviewed for you Jennifer Weiner, Good in Bed, and I picked up a copy of this one too. And this is In Her Shoes. I have already read this too, but I didn't have a copy of it. Sometimes I don't know if I have a copy of it or not. I just pick it up because I figure, oh my gosh, this is really good, and I could totally just give this away for 99 cents. Desperately Seeking. This is the Heather Weber series, Weber with 2 B's. This is a series that I've read before. It's the Lucy Valentine novel. I don't know what number this one is, but I will read any of these. They're super fun. Really can be fun for a summer read. And look, someone left their bookmark in here. A hair clip. That's so not surprising. Another book that I picked up a copy of is The Diary of a Young Girl, the definitive edition, Anne Frank. I don't know that I've ever read this book cover to cover, so I wanted to pick that one up. I think that's definitely one that I would like to take some samples out of and use in the classroom. We've talked a ton about Robert Frost this year. I don't know why. I'm not a poetry fan. I told the kids at the beginning of the year I wasn't a poetry fan, but we were going to do some, and then I feel like we've done a ton, especially for Robert Frost. So I picked up this new enlarged pocket anthology of Robert Frost poems. So we did Fire and Ice. We did Stopping by the Woods. We did Two Roads Diverged in a Wood. We've just done a number of these. The Road Not Taken. There you go. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. Those are the actual titles. So I just picked this up because I thought there's Fire and Ice. I thought it would be one that would be good for, now that I've read several of them, to go back and read his collection. So super excited about that one, and I think that I have some kids that really liked his poetry and that they'll appreciate that. I picked up a copy of Sun, the Lois Lowry. It's the conclusion to The Giver. I've read The Giver. I have not read the second one, which is Gathering Blue, but this is the third one, so I picked up a copy of that for us. I picked up a copy of The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. I've not read this. But again, look at those illustrations. I don't know, I didn't really say it when I held it up there, so I want to make sure you see them because it's a really pretty one. Now that's on the cover, so you know, if I took that out, it's just a very plain book here, but there are also illustrations within the book, so pretty happy about that one. I've read parts of The Wind in the Willows. I've not actually finished it, so another one that I would really like to return to and read. Oh, I got a copy of Girl Wash Your Face. Have I already read this one? I think this is the one that I read, or I read her other one. This is Rachel Hollis. I can't remember if this is the one that I read by her, or if I read her other one. I can't remember. I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up, but picked up a copy at Goodwill. I picked up a copy of Jojo Moyes' Me Before You. This is a popular read. I've not read it. I don't think I've read anything by Jojo Moyes, so this is on my to-be-read list. So I just picked up a nice paperback copy. I think it's one that I'll probably throw into the classroom after reading. We'll see after I read it, but I think that the girls will like that one. I picked up a copy of Before I Fall for the classroom. This is Lauren Oliver. Really, really like Lauren Oliver. Remember they turned this into a movie maybe on Netflix. Haven't watched the movie, so it's on my to-be watch list for the summer, but I really like this book. Picked up a copy of Crossed. We have a couple of copies of Matched in the classroom, so I wanted to make sure that if they read that and they liked that, that we'd have a couple copies of this one. I haven't read Crossed. I only read Matched. I picked up a copy of Liar's Club. I have read this. We read this with our book club. This is a fabulous memoir. Highly recommend it. Ooh, I didn't realize that she has another book called Cherry. I'll have to look that one up. But, oh, actually I picked this one up at Half Price Books. Sorry, not at Goodwill. This one came from Half Price Books, so must have popped in there. I don't remember doing that, but that's what it says. I picked up a copy, again, because it has a picture of a dog on the cover, and I'm a sucker for that. Looks like a cozy mystery, or just a cozy Christmas book. So just any kind of Christmas themed book and a dog, and I'm gonna pick it up. It says a dog called Jack, so I remember picking that one up. It's by Kensington, so that's another thing. When I see that name, for some reason I think, oh, I've read several of the books that Kensington Books has published, and I like them. I picked up a copy of We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This is another one that will be great for the classroom. I didn't know that this book was even out there. It's by Jason Reynolds, and it's called As Brave as You. Look how, it's so weird because it looks big, but yet it looks like a children's book. So I'm not sure about this one, but he writes amazing stories, so I'm super excited to take a look at this one. I got a copy of Divergent, already read it, needed a copy for the classroom. We don't have one, it's for Veronica Roth. Oh, looky there. There's a copy of actually Insurgent, so a couple of those. This one's the hardback one, though, that's in that series. And then another book that I've already read that I didn't have a copy for my shelves was Before We Were Yours. This one is by Lisa Wingate. So not going to take time to talk to you about those. That's just my book haul. And they're ones that if I've already read them, then they'll go on my shelf and I will make sure I either have reviews out there for you or I'll throw them on Goodreads. But I will list all of those titles down below so that if you saw something, it'll be there. There are a couple books that I had in my book haul on my list that I don't have in here, like Elsewhere and Ender's Game and Left Behind. My guess is I already took those to the classroom because in the midst of buying them, I wasn't waiting to do the video and somebody's asked for them. That would be my guess because I don't have them here. So last thing, I don't have a lot of book news to talk about. I don't know why I don't really have that transcribed on here. So if I've done something and thrown it out there, I'll throw it on to the next one. But I did pay retail for one book in this whole stack of book haul, and that is The World of Wonders. Amy Neshukatil. We're going to go with that. It says, in praise of fireflies, whale sharks, and other astonishments. And it just, I don't know. I just kept hearing and hearing about this book, and it's not a novel. It's a nonfiction celebration of life. I think that that's what I would say. So, looks super interesting. I have not started it yet, but it's going in my short stack over here. So let me think about real quick what it is and what am I reading right now? I'm currently listening to The Initial Insult by Mindy McGinnis, and that is for NetGalley. I'm reading that Complete Stories of Edgar Allan Poe, so that's on my short list. I just started a book at school that I don't even know the title of, and I didn't put it on my reading list yet. I don't know why I didn't write that down, but I am, a student bought it for me. She's already read it, and she bought me a copy, so I'm reading that. It's about a plane crash, and I am getting on a plane Sunday morning. Probably could have waited till I got back. But anywho, I'm enjoying that. That's a good one. Through my public library on Libby, I am reading Kate Carlisle's Books of a Feather. So I'm listening to that on audio. And that's really where I am right now. So that's what I'm currently reading. Once again, this video has, I'm sure, going to be way too long. I'm going to edit out as much as I can. I just can't even describe to you how happy I am that I've ended up with 91 subscribers. and that you guys continue to watch these videos. I hope you really enjoy them. I have 2 coffee shop stops to tell you about. The one is called Already. I think that's how you say it. It's in Sharonville. I stopped there, I think, in January, and then I never told you guys about it, so I added that to my coffee shop stop. And then the latest one opened in Blanchester, which is the small town that I teach in. Ridiculously small town, and they just opened an independent coffee shop called Roasted. So I will link that below too. I'm super excited. I've gone and gotten, I stopped on Monday. It opened on Monday. I stopped on Monday and bought our English department coffees. And what do we had caramel macchiatos, and they were very good. So I'm interested in trying everything out on their menu. So congratulations, Roasted. Super excited to have a local coffee shop stop in my town. I'm happy to be your friendly librarian, and thank you for sticking with me. Feel free to connect with me socially on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, anything that's out there. I even put some stuff on TikTok here lately. All of my reviews go onto Goodreads and are linked onto my Facebook page. Remember that you can access any of the books that I've talked about from your public library. You don't need to go out and purchase them, but if you do, check out those independent bookstores and those recyclers like Goodwill and the thrift store that I was talking about. Hit that subscribe and like button so that we can keep in touch. Comment, email, text, message me. Let me know what you're reading, what you want to read. Keep in touch, folks. Enjoy.